Well, good morning, and it's a pleasure to be with you and to be back here at the Hurlingham Club for this important B4E conference. The theme is powering global growth. But of course, what we read in the papers at the moment is that growth, at least in China, is slowing a bit, and that's spilling over to some other countries. But what we know is that even if growth rates in some countries and some significant economies may be slowing, the demand for energy, other things equal, is continuing to rise. And our standard fix for increasing or responding to increased demand for energy is, of course, simply to increase supply. So we go and drill for more fossil fuels, or we erect more wind turbines, or we build more power plants, or we dream of nuclear power plants being completed on time and on budget. But all of these approaches are a bit like feeding a guinea pig. No matter how much you feed your guinea pig, they still want to eat more. And in fact, even if that means they grow too big, get ill and ultimately die, they have an insatiable appetite for food. So the responsible way to keep your guinea pig healthy and happy is, of course, to be modest in the amount of food you give it and ignore its protests, but also to investigate what are the most nutritious forms of food so that it needs less to sustain itself. And that is what energy productivity and energy efficiency can do to help solve our energy challenge and the otherwise insatiable demand for more and more energy. But the challenge we've got is that these two, energy productivity and energy efficiency, seem to me to be often rather well camouflaged heroes, or rather heroines. And our challenge is to drag these superheroes, superheroines, more into the spotlight, because we know that these are two of the most important tools for us to fight climate change and make our economies more resilient and our supply chains more secure. Now, as we've already heard, dangerous climate change is a serious threat to our way of life and to the natural world on which we depend. And if we're going to limit future warming to below 2 degrees centigrade, as our government and political leaders have said they want to do, then we're going to have to make sure that global greenhouse gases peak within the next 5 years. And as we've just heard, they're already over yet another boundary. So this is an urgent issue because of the life expectancy of carbon in the atmosphere. So we've got to find pathways to reduction, and energy efficiency can play a big role in doing that. And in fact, energy efficiency has a pretty good track record. According to the International Energy Agency, energy efficiency is now the world's first fuel. That is to say, since the 1970s, energy efficiency has contributed more to delivering the world's energy services than fossil fuels have, or nuclear has, or solar has, or any other individual fuel. And it could provide, so they tell us, up to 40% of the global greenhouse gas reductions that are needed to stay within 2 degrees centigrade. So it's efficiency combined with clean energy which is going to provide the cleaner and therefore better economic growth that we need to be powered in our 21st century economy. And the two, energy efficiency, energy productivity, are natural partners, particularly when combined with clean energy, which is sustainable. Now, improving energy productivity is also, of course, a strategy for economic growth. And that's why I guess both the US and Germany have targets to improve energy productivity and why the Chinese government have set aspirations for decoupling energy production from and carbon emissions from economic growth. And these messages about the potential of energy productivity are vital if the public, from whom we need support, businesses, other businesses, and governments who need to take policy decisions are going to be convinced that action on climate does not have to come at a high cost to the economy. And of course, in this year, at this point in the year, we're very conscious of the importance of this as we head towards the COP21 conference in Paris in December. As we know, countries around the world are deciding what's their contribution going to be to a global deal. And being alert to the climate and productivity benefits that investing in energy efficiency could bring could increase their ambition. And indeed, after Paris, because Paris is not going to be the end of the journey, after Paris, it's going to be vital further to increase emission reductions at scale and speed. And global energy and carbon productivity is going to have to increase rapidly, both to meet our climate targets, but also, thinking of the Sustainable Development Goals about to be approved at the end of this month in New York, to provide access to clean energy for all. So this is going to need a lot of investment in low-cost solutions, which are, of course, already out there, many of them, and within reach. But we also need to continue the spending on research and development if we're going to provide the energy-efficient products of the future in our buildings, in our transport, in our industry, and so on. And so I do think that one of the crucial roles for businesses such as those represented here today is to alert consumers and governments to these productivity opportunities and their benefits, to increase the enthusiasm level that there is in the public and in governments. Now, business can and indeed is leading the way by developing all kinds of tools and practices that are unlocking hidden energy efficiency opportunities. And many of WWF's private sector partners are doing just that. Marks & Spencer or HSBC or Sky or IKEA, all of them putting a lot of thought and resources into improving energy efficiency. And then if we look at the bigger financial investment scenario, encouragingly, a recent study by Mercer's, the influential investment consultants, a study to which WWF contributed, looked at a number of scenarios for the future and the effects on portfolio returns. And one of the scenarios was, what if we keep global warming to within 2 degrees? Because some of the other scenarios, I have to tell you, were way over that. But what that modelling confirmed is that if we do manage to keep global warming within 2 degrees, as governments have said they want to, as scientists have told us we need to, then that would not be punitive for investors at a portfolio level. And so we need to spread these positive examples and shout them from the rooftops in Paris and embed the practices that made them possible more widely across businesses. So it's key that innovative businesses such as we have here this week, these couple of days, speak up. For example, in June of this year, we at WWF coordinated a letter from 80 businesses to the Prime Minister, which was published in the Financial Times. And it called on him to do 3 things. Firstly, to seek a strong global climate deal in Paris. Secondly, to set an ambitious 5th carbon budget here in the UK. And thirdly, to establish a long-term framework for investment in the low-carbon economy. So the government does have a key role to play to make sure all this potential is tapped. I think at the moment the picture in the UK is that there's an awful lot more work to do to convince some of our political leaders of the opportunity. Their summer productivity plan did nothing for energy productivity. In fact, the opposite, by scrapping the zero carbon homes policy, the consequence of which, of course, will be lower energy efficiency, higher energy use, higher bills for the long term, all traded in for a short-term and small saving on construction costs. But the government is currently reviewing policies for energy efficiency in homes and businesses, and so there's plenty of opportunity for them and for you to encourage them to turn the ship around, or rather, to go back to my analogy, to stop overfeeding the guinea pig. One of those opportunities would be to look at efficiency standards in the built environment. We've seen how that's been effective in white goods and vehicles, so the same could be applied to the built environment. And right now, of course, Shell is busy drilling for oil in the Arctic, determined to continue their guinea pig feeding strategy. £7 billion being spent looking for the wrong fuel in the wrong place, instead of investing in the opportunity to increase energy productivity. And to put a couple of numbers on that, globally we spend over $1 trillion extracting fossil fuels, and we only spend a third of that on energy efficiency improvements. So what's needed is simply to balance the scales, because our metaphorical guinea pig already has one foot in the grave and might soon give up the ghost. But the good news is that if we can get the policies right and the actions right, there's huge potential improvement in the health of our guinea pig and in global energy productivity. That's the energy that we need to tap more urgently than ever before. So let's, over these 2 days, look out for the visionary leaders that will be showing the world how it's done and join them. Thank you.